Hey everyone, Sebastian here. We're going to be going over 6 quick tips for the digital SAT. Just a quick overview of things everyone should be doing that are pretty easy to do, that will help your score, just iron it out, and that a lot of people forget to do. So let's go through. I'll go through them on their own, and then we're going to do little examples, and then we'll just close off, right? So the 6 tips are always be moving. Okay, so that's tip number 1. Always be moving. And you'll see what that means, but it basically means don't freeze, always be doing something. Read every answer choice, that's pretty self-explanatory. Double check the question, also self-explanatory, but I'll go over how to do that. Use Desmos like Goldilocks, right? Right in the middle, not too much, not too little. Skip questions and come back. And remember, it's not everything, right? The test is just one of many things that are going to help you get into college, and college too, not everything. All right, so let's go with the first, and I'll explain what I mean by always be moving. All right, so always be moving is about always be reading or doing math or moving your eyes somewhere on the screen, right? Don't sit there being like, I don't know, no. You want to be looking at the passages. So if you have a reading passage like this, right, you do text 1 first, and then you're going to do text 2. And then you're going to read, so you'll go text 1, then you're going to read text 2, then you read the question. Sometimes you can do the question first if you want, that's okay too. So you go like this, right? And then here, and then back to here, and then to the answer choices. Boom, boom, boom. And then you're going to be going back and forth. I'm just drawing out where your eyes go, right? Back and forth. So this is a question about text 2. So maybe we go back to text 2 after you read it. Then you go up to text 1, and then you go to check on microbes, and then you keep going back and forth between the answer choices and the questions. And why is that helpful? Because sitting and freezing and thinking on your own is only a little helpful, and it's taking you away from engaging with the actual question. You want to focus on the actual text you have and not just on your thoughts, right? So don't freeze and contemplate, be moving, always be reading something. I almost labeled it as always be reading, but in math it also works, always be doing something. And then you're absorbing information as you read and reread things. So just because you read A once doesn't mean you think about A forever. It means read it again if you're still confused. And I wouldn't do multiple rereads of the same thing in a row, because normally if you're confused about, say, text 1, maybe text 2 will help. And if you're confused about the text, maybe the answer choices will help, right? So you're always scanning up and down on the passage, okay? So that is just one of the tips that I think is really helpful that people don't do enough of. Too many people sit and freeze on a question. You want to be moving, right? You want to be exploring the question, exploring the text. And if it's not the question of reading, right, then it's a question of math, and you want to be moving forward. And if you feel like you freeze, then you need to do something else. So now the next one is read every answer choice, right? So this is a math question. It also applies to the reading questions. So you have here 4 answer choices, like always, unless of course it's a fill in the blank. You have A equals 2, A equals -2, B equals 1, B equals 7, B equals 5, -5. So looking at A equals 2 and -2, I already know the choices are between 2 and -2 for A. And then I should know the choices here between B, right? There's 4 different choices, so it's less eliminating, but that helps me understand. It helps me know that all the answers are going to be whole numbers. I shouldn't be getting any fractions. And then I can work out the question and see, and if I get, say, 2 for A, I can automatically eliminate C and D, and that also eliminates 5 and -5 for B, okay? So this is also just to make sure you don't just pick the first good answer choice. You're always looking for the best answer choice in the reading passages. And again, pretty self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised how many students don't read every answer choice. Then you want to double check the question, okay? So looking at this one here, right, there's a passage, and then the question is which finding from the study of true would most directly weaken the potential explanation. This type of question you get a lot, but often it says most directly support or most strongly support. And if you're just sort of reading it, at a glance, you might think, oh, strengthen, and then you find the answer choice that strengthens it. But it's asking to weaken, right? So what I like to do is I don't reread back in the moment I read it the first time. It's not like I read which finding from the study of true would most directly weaken the potential explanation, and then immediately reread that, which finding from the study of true would most directly weaken the potential explanation. No, what I do is I read the question, passage, answer choices. I work out whatever answer choice I have, right? Always reading back and forth between the three things. And then, before I move on to the next question, I just reread the question. Which finding from the study, if true, would most directly weaken the potential explanation, right? And if you can do that, that just makes sure you don't make any silly mistakes. Those are the killer points, right? If you get a question that you should have gotten right, but that you mistake by misreading the question, it's just a brutal feeling. All right, so now let's go to the next one. Use Desmos like Goldilocks. I'm going to do other videos on Desmos alone, so I don't want to get into questions too much, but they're great for systems of equations, right? Like 2x plus 3y equals 8, and then another equation, 3x plus 5y equals -6. You can just put that in, see where they intersect, if that's what it's asking for, and solve. That's great. They're good for quick quadratics, right? If you have 3x squared plus 8x minus 9 equals 0, you could factor, and that could be maybe the fastest, but if you can't think of how to factor, just plug it in Desmos, and you will get the intersections, and you can solve, right? And they're okay for quick calculations, right? So if you have something like 9 times 8, I would hope you could do that in your head like that, or close to like that. But if you're stuck, plug it into Desmos, and then obviously with more complicated calculations like 4.15 times 8.4, plug it into Desmos, right? They're not great for abstract questions. So let's say you have something like the quadratic, and then you have ax squared plus bx plus c, right? Instead of giving you numbers, they're giving you these variables and constants, and you don't really know what to plug in for Desmos. That's probably going to take more time figuring out what to do for Desmos. Some people are great at them, but I wouldn't worry about doing it for that. So when you see a question, don't automatically be thinking, can I use Desmos? Maybe if we're doing a practice session where you're trying to really buckle down on Desmos usage, but on the actual test, you want it to feel natural, right? Many questions get faster with Desmos, but not all of them. And you don't want to use it as a crutch, you want to use it as a tool, right? There's a big difference between relying on Desmos because you don't know how to do it the other ways, and using Desmos because you're proficient with it, okay? Skip and come back. I like to do that for hard questions. This is one of the hardest questions my students ever see, and it has a lot of data. So if you saw a question like this, you read it and you're sort of confused and you feel pressed for time, skip it, come back to it. You'll be totally fine, okay? And then the last thing I just want to say, right, is remember the test isn't everything, right? So you're studying hard, you're watching videos like this, you're taking practice tests, you're learning math in school, you're reading in school. That's all great. You take those blue book tests, you do extra practice exercises, you're doing great. And you'll do well if you do that, and it's not the end of the world if you don't score a 1500, right? If you get a 1480 versus 1500, schools don't really care about that. And obviously you could get a lot worse than 1480 and still be fine. It's about learning the strategy for the test to simplify your life, learning the foundations, most of which you've learned already in school, and applying them to SAT questions that are differently asked than like what you get on a test at school, and then going from there, right? There's other parts to you for the test, and stress really doesn't help anything. So you work at this, you study, you take it, and then you move on, okay? If you have any questions on this, let me know. Of course, I'm doing other videos on math and reading. I'll do a Desmos video, like I said, and I will see you on next time. Bye.